My name is Lana Pierce, and I've never forgotten the sound my father's boots made as he dragged me across the cracked cement of our driveway in Spokane, Washington. It was my brother's parking spot, apparently, and my rusty sedan had accidentally claimed it one morning. The paint on his Tesla hadn't even been scratched, but that didn't matter. I remember his shout, "Dad, Lana's blocking me again. She doesn't respect anything." And just like that, my father stormed in. He didn't ask questions. He didn't even yell. He grabbed me by the hair, dragged me out the side door, and flung me to the ground. I remember my elbow scraping the gravel. The sting wasn't the worst part. It was what he said next. "Useless things belong in the trash." He didn't stop there. He picked up my paintings, my laptop, my sketchbooks, every dream I had bottled in color and canvas. He dumped them all into the street-side garbage bin while our neighbors peeked through their blinds. My mother stood on the porch, arms folded like she was posing for some sick portrait of disapproval. "She has no future anyway," she muttered. And then came the final act. My brother Derek, the crown jewel of their existence, casually tossed my backpack into the street like it was just more junk. "Don't forget your trash, Lana." The only thing heavier than my limbs that day was the silence of everyone watching. Nobody helped, nobody stopped it. They just watched as I became nothing. But I wasn't broken, not yet. That was the moment I decided they would remember me, not as a failure, but as the daughter who never came crawling back and made sure everyone knew why. After the streetlight flickered overhead and I stood in the cold, I walked. I didn't cry. I didn't beg. I walked past the neighbors pretending not to see me, past the park where I used to paint sunsets, past the art store where I spent my last $60 on oil paints. I walked until my legs burned. It wasn't until I heard someone call my name that I stopped. "Lana, wait, wait." It was Mrs. Janine Donnelly, the retired piano teacher from across the street. She hustled toward me in orthopedic sneakers, holding a wrinkled envelope. "I saw what they did. That was cruelty, not parenting," she said. "I can't offer much, but I know someone who might help." She handed me the envelope. Inside was $80 in cash and a business card. "Ira Maxwell, local gallery owner, The Painted Nook. He owes me a favor. He loves raw talent, especially when it bleeds." Bleeds. That word stuck, because that's what I was doing, bleeding. Quietly. Ira's gallery sat between a pawn shop and a vape lounge, tucked away in a forgotten block of Spokane's North Monroe district. I showed up the next day, still wearing the same clothes. He didn't ask questions, just handed me a rag and pointed to a wall full of scuffed frames. "Clean, then paint. If you're worth anything, I'll know." He wasn't friendly. But he wasn't cruel. That was enough. I scrubbed, painted, stayed late. Ira wasn't like Seth from the original story. He was rougher, snarkier, a chain smoker who judged art like it owed him money. But he saw something in me. "You've got heat," he said one night. "That's what people buy, not flowers, not peace, rage, grit, pain." So I gave it to them. Late into the night, I painted on thrown-out wood planks and canvas scraps. I signed them anonymously, Verlaine. A name I stole from an old poetry book, my new self. Online, at Verlaine art began as a whisper, but every brushstroke was a scream. One of my first pieces, titled Inheritance, showed a golden boy in a suit made of bones, his throne built from shattered mirrors. I didn't tag my family, but everyone who knew us knew. It went viral on Instagram. And that's when Courtney Knight messaged me, a West Coast curator who said, "Your art punches people in the throat, I love it." She invited me to hang a piece in her Seattle gallery's underground exhibition, Truth Hurt. That single night changed everything. 3 collectors bid on my work. One of them, an architect from Portland, commissioned 4 more. Ira stopped sneering. He gave me my own wall. I used the money to rent a 300-square-foot apartment above a laundromat. No heat, no kitchen, just a window and space for my easel. I didn't care. It was mine. But just when I started to breathe again, they came back. One morning, I opened my DMs to a familiar name, Cheryl Pierce, my mother. "We came across at Verlaine Art, stunning pieces. We're planning Derek's engagement party at the Davenport Hotel. Could we commission a dramatic centerpiece? Happy to pay full rate." She had no idea it was me. The woman who told me I had no future was now offering me money for a painting. It wasn't about art anymore. It was about truth. So I wrote back, "Absolutely, I'll deliver it myself." And just like that, the stage was set. The week leading up to Derek's engagement party, I barely slept. not out of nerves, but hunger, for justice. For the first time in my life, I was painting not to escape, but to confront. Every brushstroke on that 36x48 canvas was surgical, precise, a scalpel to cut open the facade they'd built. I named the piece Silhouette of a Scapegoat. It was brutal. The background, a dining room on fire. The table was pristine, set for a party. A woman in pearls raised a glass of wine, oblivious to the flames. A man stood beside her, clutching a briefcase that bled red. A young man sat at the head, his suit melting, a crown of broken spoons on his head. And in the corner, nearly hidden, was a girl. Charred, shadowed, but her eyes glowed white-hot. They were mine. On the back of the canvas, I scrawled, "You fed off me until there was nothing left. Here's what I became without you." Wrapped in brown paper and twine, I carried it up the steps of the Davenport Hotel on the night of the gala. Spokane's elite were already sipping champagne beneath chandeliers, laughing, clinking glasses, trading stories about private schools and property investments. I wore black jeans, combat boots, and a denim jacket that still smelled like turpentine. The concierge looked at me sideways. "Vendors use the side door." "I'm not a vendor," I said. "I'm the artist." Inside the ballroom, everything was white and gold, roses everywhere. Derek stood by a towering cake, fake smiling next to his fiancée, a blonde socialite type I'd never seen before. My mother gasped when she saw me. "Lana, what are you?" I ignored her. Walked straight past the buffet, past the string quartet, right to the easel they'd prepped near the fountain centerpiece. "Time for the reveal," I said, loudly enough to turn heads, gasps, murmurs. "Is that Verlaine? The Instagram artist? Wait, is that Lana Pierce?" The room rippled with tension like a glass of wine about to spill. I ripped the paper from the canvas in one swift motion. The painting gleamed in the spotlight. Flames, shadows, the family, me. Then I turned it over, flipping it to reveal the message I'd written in red ink across the back. "You fed off me until there was nothing left. Here's what I became without you." Silence. "Then is that about you, Derek? Is this real?" "Wait, Lana's Verlaine." My brother's face went pale. My mother grabbed my arm, hissing under her breath. "You embarrassed yourself, take it down." But it wasn't me who looked embarrassed. It was Derek's boss, who turned to him and said, "So this is the crazy sister you left homeless. The one you lied about in the shareholders' meeting?" I didn't have to say a word. The room did it for me. "Monster. I would never commission from your family again. This is art with a soul. You raised her and you threw her away." Guests began leaving, some quietly, others loud and disgusted. One woman dumped her wine onto the cake. Another shoved past my father and muttered, "You don't deserve a daughter like that." My father clenched his jaw so tight his face twitched. My mother's hands were shaking. And Derek? He looked like a statue, one step away from crumbling. I picked up the painting, turned once more toward the crowd, and said, "This is what you get when you throw a match into someone else's soul and walk away." Then I left. Outside, the air was sharp and clean. Ira was waiting by the curb in his beat-up Corolla, smirking as he lit a cigarette. "How'd it go?" he asked. "Better than therapy." By the next morning, my painting was everywhere. Instagram, Twitter, Facebook, screens lit up with the now-famous image of Silhouette of a Scapegoat, alongside headlines like, "Local artist publicly exposes family's abuse at elite gala." Verlaine revealed. Meet the daughter they called worthless. My follower count tripled overnight. Celebrities reposted it. Therapists used it. A trauma coach from California even asked to license the image for her book cover. I didn't respond to any of the chaos until I saw the video. Someone had recorded the entire moment, me walking into the ballroom, the reveal, my line. "This is what you get when you throw a match into someone else's soul and walk away." The comment section was a war zone of praise and fury, none of it directed at me. Her family deserves everything that's coming. Derek got a Tesla, she got trauma. She's not just an artist, she's a mirror they couldn't handle. Then came the fallout. Derek's bank cut ties immediately. His company, already dealing with some PR issues, couldn't handle the heat. His name vanished from their website within 24 hours. My father, a construction executive, was quietly asked to retire early after one of his biggest clients, a feminist housing nonprofit, withdrew a multi-million-dollar contract. My mother, she tried to host her annual wine and garden party 2 weeks later. Only 2 guests showed up. One of them left halfway through. The other, accidentally, broke her antique vase and blamed it on the wind. She sent me an email 3 days later. "Lana, please, let's talk. We're still family, mistakes were made." I didn't reply, but I wasn't finished. Courtney, my gallery connection, offered to host my first solo exhibition in Seattle. We titled it Exile, The Cost of Silence. Each painting told another piece of my story: abandonment, rage, survival, rebirth. One corner of the gallery was roped off with a velvet rope. Behind it, the original silhouette of a scapegoat, lit by a single spotlight. It had become iconic. On opening night, the line wrapped around the block. Critics wrote glowing reviews. One called me the painter of the discarded, a voice for those who were thrown away and found fire in the ashes. Ira cried that night, full-on, nose-blowing, shirt-soaking sobs. Then he handed me a folded check, half the exhibition's profits. "This is your war chest," he said. "Use it," so I did. I founded Project Imberlite, an arts program for homeless and abused youth. Free classes, therapy, mentorship, everything I never had. We launched in Spokane and within 6 months had funding to expand to Tacoma and Boise. Then the next twist came. She waited in line with other donors. Didn't try to skip. When it was her turn, she handed me a check for $5,000 and said, "He lied about everything. Told me you ran off to join some cult of starving artists. I found out the truth the night of the party. I left him that weekend." She paused. "You saved me a lifetime of regret." "Thank you." I accepted the check and gave her a hug. That night I got one final email from my father. No apology, no request, just a subject line: "You win." I smiled. Not because I wanted to win, but because I had. 6 months after the Gala explosion, I was back in Spokane. Only this time, it wasn't for revenge. It was for the ribbon-cutting ceremony of Project Imberlite's first permanent center. A converted warehouse just 10 blocks from my childhood home, now transformed into a sanctuary for kids who'd been tossed aside the way I had. News crews showed up. Donors, volunteers, even a city councilwoman who called my work a lighthouse for the lost. As I stood there, giant scissors in hand, I felt it. The fire they tried to smother had become a beacon, and it was burning bright. Then came the final twist. A young boy named Elijah, maybe 9 years old, handed me a rolled-up paper during our grand opening. "I drew you," he said. I unrolled it and nearly dropped it. He'd drawn a girl on fire. Not burning, glowing, arms wide. Hair like smoke. Behind her were shadows shaped like chains, and in front of her, a staircase leading into the sky. I knew that painting. I had painted it myself, once, when I still lived in that cursed house. It was my first attempt to express escape, but my father had torn it in half and thrown it away. How had Elijah? "Mrs. Donnelly gave me your old sketchbook," he said. "Said you'd want it back." I blinked through tears. That sketchbook had survived. The one they'd tossed in the trash with my laptop and dreams. The one I thought was lost forever. I held it to my chest like a relic. This was it. The last piece. The part of me they couldn't destroy. A week later, I did something petty, but perfect. I took the painting Elijah recreated, the girl on fire, and made it into a mural, a massive one, on the side of the old Pierce family home, which was now for sale. Turns out my parents were downsizing. Couldn't handle the whispers, the event snubs, or the fact that Parker had moved to Arizona and ghosted them. The mural showed the burning girl walking away from a crumbling house, the words "born again in her own flame" painted underneath in gold. Legally, I didn't need their permission. The new buyer, an Imberlite donor, had already closed the deal and given me the wall. When my parents drove by and saw it, according to Mrs. Donnelly, who never missed a thing, my mother wept in the car. Not from grief, but from knowing they didn't get to erase me, they made me, and I used their cruelty like paint. Now my name is Verlaine Pierce, and people no longer ask, "What do you do?" They ask, "How did you survive that?" And I always tell them, by making them watch me become everything they swore I never would.